When news broke of two planes carrying about 50 migrants landing on Martha's Vineyard yesterday, it was Fox News that got the exclusive footage from the office of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who proudly took credit for sending those planes. It's part of what they call their relocation program, in which they send migrants to sanctuary destinations, and Florida's legislature even put aside $12 million of taxpayer money for the cause. Several migrants reported being lured onto the plane outside a shelter in Texas by a woman who promised them expedited work papers. Of course, this isn't the first such incident. Texas Governor Greg Abbott spent the better part of the summer sending buses of migrants to New York, Illinois, and D.C. And here in Massachusetts, yesterday's events were unexpected. No notice from DeSantis or anyone involved in the plan. Joined by Eve Zuckoff, a reporter with our Cape and Islands station CAI, who's been on the scene in Martha's Vineyard since yesterday, and State Senator Julian Cyr, who represents the Vineyard. Senator and Eve, thank you much for your time.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.
Eve, if I can start with you, let's start at the beginning. The proud instigator, as I said, obviously is DeSantis. But you're reporting on this recruiter that I just described, for lack of better expression, this woman, Perla. Can you tell us what some of the people you talked to said about her?
Yeah, what they told us is that when they crossed the border, they found themselves in Texas at a San Antonio shelter where they were approached by a woman. At first, migrants were hesitant to share her name, and kind of after talking to the second, third, bringing up this woman, several of them said, yeah, it was a woman. Her description was pretty consistent. Her name was Perla, and she offered them time staying in a hotel. She offered them food. And finally, she said, I'm going to get you expedited work papers when you get on this plane and you arrive in Boston. And so people who had very little options and choices in the homes that they were coming from, they jumped on this opportunity. So they got on these planes.
Let me state the obvious. So the representations she made to them were untrue, based upon what they told you.
Everything so far, this woman completely misled them. They didn't even land in Boston. They didn't know what Martha's Vineyard was.
And we don't know who she was sent by, who she was operating on behalf of. We don't know. In terms of the 40-some people who were there, staying with you, Eve, for a second, from what I understand, it's some families, a lot of individual men, and some kids as well. Is that an accurate description?
That's right. There are toddlers, one who had a fever last night. That's the only sick person here, per se. But the little kids have been playing, drawing on a big chalkboard. They've had tons of toys. And the men here have been playing dominoes. They've been playing soccer. They've been smoking. Really, it's what you would expect families and young men to do if they were stuck on a really long layover.
You know, Senator, my understanding is Governor DeSantis is going to be very upset because the reception, from what I understand from afar, has been quite warm from the business infrastructure, the political infrastructure, individuals. What's your understanding of how the people and institutions of the Vineyard have received these people?
So here on Martha's Vineyard and across the region, right, we're in the business of welcoming people. And we also really believe, right, that you got to welcome people with dignity and respect. You know, as you said, there was no advance notice of this, but you know, the island community with emergency management, the sheriff's office, and community services here, and a whole host of volunteers, the Red Cross, pulled together a shelter basically that we would have for a hurricane or a nor'easter. Made that happen. So you know, really, the islanders have rallied to really support and welcome these migrants who are in a very, you know, unfortunate situation and who appear to have been actually trafficked, you know, perhaps by, resources from another state into Massachusetts.
Well, you know, I was going to get to that a little bit later, but since you used the term, the former Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral, was on our radio show today, as was Eve, by the way. And what Andrea Cabral said, she looked up the federal, not trafficking statute, but false imprisonment statute, and read it and said she believed, based upon the deceptive representations, as Eve described from this woman, Perla, and the consent to go, and I use the term consent in quotes, because of those untrue representations, that false imprisonment had happened. Is anybody in your world, Attorney General, Governor, legislatures, any local DAs? Is anybody talking about possibly bringing criminal charges against somebody here? Perla, Governor DeSantis, somebody?
So, first, we're focused on making sure that,
Of course,
these migrant families, right, have a roof over their head and all that. But really, this raises very significant concerns and questions and legal considerations as well. I mean, this was a cruel ruse that manipulated these vulnerable families for political gain, and capitalizing this in the most cynical way. Look, this isn't about helping border communities that are having a capacity problem. This isn't about helping these families. This is about a political stunt for political gain. And it's just disgusting.
Eve, how are they doing? I know you've spoken to a decent number. How do they feel about the reception? How did they feel about the first night? How are they doing?
That's the thing. I spoke earlier this afternoon with two men who I had talked to yesterday also. And yesterday they were just kind of retelling the story of how they got here. By this afternoon, they made a point of saying they are so grateful to the people of Massachusetts. They didn't know what Massachusetts was not too long ago. And they have just been met with food, with clothing, with everything they can need. I mean, it's moving beyond basic necessities. And now it's like, can we get headphones here? Can we get things that make this stay a little bit more enjoyable?
Despite the hospitality and the empathy, Senator, it seems to me that there's a limited ability of the Vineyard infrastructure, to use the term again, to provide more than temporary space for them. And obviously jobs are non-existent in the winter, not to mention the cost of housing. So what are state and local officials talking about as next steps once this initial phase comes to an end?
I mean, absolutely right. There's a capacity challenge that we have, even with a shelter. Currently has very limited bathrooms. Only one shower. So this is not sort of sustainable. Maybe sustainable for another day or two. I expect we'll have news soon. From the state, who's been spending the whole day and really since yesterday, marshaling resources and figuring out how do we help these families and also potentially others that are coming. There's a whole swirl of rumors of potentially other either buses that may be coming to Massachusetts. Look, we have a playbook on this in the Patrick administration. Massachusetts welcomed unaccompanied minors to Massachusetts and utilized Joint Base Cape Cod to do that. We may see that playbook dusted off, so I expect you'll hear more on that soon.
So, what kind of time frame, Senator, are you talking about, or are you talking about?
We're talking about a matter of days. I think that given the number of people, given the current shelter capacity we have here, I think also we need to anticipate, unfortunately, that another plane could come. Right? I don't think we. I think we need to anticipate that, and local officials here have anticipated that, and I think unfortunately we'll continue to do so, for some time, just given the really cruel, unexpected nature of this political stunt at the expense of these vulnerable migrants.
Eve, do you have any insight on this whole question about whether or not this is just the first of more? I mean, from what I understand, I'm not sure if it was your reporting or not. I heard some of the people who were on the plane talked about there had been others, and at least some of them had an expectation what the senator is predicting would come true, that this was just round one. Do you have any insight?
This has been the stuff of rumors all day here on the grounds. I mean, really the focus has just been, okay, it's another mealtime. Okay, there's a kid whose fever, really maybe she should get checked out. So not here, we don't know, but it's rumors every hour about that.
And Eve, I should have asked you this earlier when I asked you to describe the demographic, for lack of a better expression. The vast majority of this 43 or whatever the number is are from Venezuela. Is that not correct?
That's correct. Most of them at least lived in Venezuela. I talked to one man who's originally Colombian. There seems to be one outlier woman who's from Peru. Her name is Jessica. And all of them speak Spanish, and almost exclusively Spanish from who I've spoken with so far.
It's interesting also that when you come from Venezuela, people like DeSantis are amongst the most vocal critics of the government under Maduro there. But when then people leave, they're to be made an example. I want to seize, Senator, on the word that you've used twice. I don't know if you ever read the book by a writer in The Atlantic called Cruelty is the Point. And it was about Donald Trump and Trumpism. Cruelty seems to me to be the point? Is it, I mean, politician to politician, not you to me, you to DeSantis. What do you say to what would you say to Governor DeSantis?
I mean, I think regrettably, you're right, Jim. And we've seen these fundamentally racist tactics and xenophobic tactics used time and again. And they go back a while. I think of in the civil rights movement in the 1960s, right? Segregationists in the South tricked Black families into relocating to the North. 96 families ended up in Hyannis, right? The whole point, the aim of the segregationists was to make the white Northern liberals look like hypocrites. Well, on Cape Cod and Hyannis, we welcomed those 96 families. We got them housing, we settled them, they became part of our community. They're Cape Codders today. This is just the worst of American politics. And it's just really unfortunate. It's just really discouraging. This is not who we are in Massachusetts. You're seeing, Democrats, Republicans, all of us responding in a bipartisan, compassionate way, at least with the bigger Polito administration, certainly our partners in Congress, our senators, Congressman Keating, Dylan Fernandez and I, all of us, right, working in a very collaborative fashion. We really have to reject this kind of politics. That is not who we are as Cape Codders and Islanders. That's not who we are as Americans.
Senator Cyr, good luck with your work. Eve Zuckoff, your reporting has been terrific. Great to have you both. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Take
Jim.
care.